Hi, everyone. Today we are going to be working on lesson 5.3, and that is on dishonored checks and electronic banking. So, by the end of this section, you'll be able to complete a recording for a dishonored check. You'll be able to journalize an electronic funds transfer and journalize a debit card transaction. So, a couple of terms that we need to be familiar with before moving forward. First, we have dishonored check, and that's a check that a bank refuses to pay. There's a couple of different reasons why the bank would refuse to pay a check, but the biggest reason is because of insufficient funds. So, if you try to write a check out of an account that doesn't have the correct amount of money on it, that's a dishonored check. So, a check dishonored by the bank because of insufficient funds in the account of the maker of the check. We could also call this an NSF check. And something to note is that writing a check from an account that doesn't have enough money in it is illegal and considered could be considered fraud. So just keep that in mind. A lot of people do this by accident, but it is illegal to do it purposefully. And also, forging a check is illegal. Trying to write a check that is not yours, or alter a check. So we kind of already talked about a couple of reasons that banks would dishonor checks. We said insufficient funds. Also, if the check appears to be altered, the bank won't pay it. If the signature of the person who signed the check doesn't match the signature card, the bank won't pay it. If the amounts written in figures do not match the amount written in words, the bank won't cash it. If the check is not post dated, an example of a post dated check is a check that has been written for a future date. So, for example, I have a rental property and someone pays me rent every month to live in that property. And so they sent me checks for the whole year, dated for the first of the month for the entire year. But they're post dated checks. So I can only cash them once that date hits. And so if I try to cash one before the date that's written on the check, the bank won't cash it. And also, if you write a check, you have the ability to stop payment on the check. It does cost a fee. You would have to go to the bank, but that would disallow the person that you gave the check to cash it. Um, Also, something to note is that banks charge a fee for just dishonor checks if brought to be deposited or cash. And so, if there is a fee, you have to then account for that fee. So, to record a dishonor check, you first have to record it on the check stub, or for your personal records, you would use a check register or your Excel sheet. But you're going to start by writing dishonor check under the heading Other. Then you're going to write the total of the dishonor check in the amount column, and that's going to be the amount of the check plus any service fee that was charged. And then you're going to calculate a new subtotal. So to calculate this new subtotal, you would subtract right here. Then you need to journalize it. So here's the transaction that occurred. On August 29th, received notice from the bank of a dishonored check from Valley Landscaping for $185 plus a $40 fee for a total of $225. So what you're going to do is accounts receivable will be debited. Why is it going to be debited? Well, because the customer now owes you that money. They gave you a check, they tried to pay you, there wasn't enough money in the account, and so now they still owe you that money in addition to the fee that you were charged as a result of their negligence. Then you're going to credit cash. Why? Because you don't have that cash available to you that you thought you had available to you. So you have to credit cash. And then the source document for a dishonored check would be a memorandum. Now, there's also things called electronic funds transfer that it's very important that you account for. So, an electronic funds transfer is computerized cash payment system that transfers funds without the use of checks, currency, or other paper documents. And they're also known as EFTs. EFTs are becoming more and more popular. I pay all my bills using electronic funds transfers, but it's important to note that you have to make a record of these transfers, either in your bank register, your Excel sheet, or in your general journal. So, for your business, you're going to write the date, and then who you are paying off. So, you owed money to Murnick Enterprises. Now you're paying them. So, we're debiting accounts payable. Our cash is coming directly out of our account. So, this would be similar as any other pay cash on account transaction. The only difference here is because it's an electronic funds transfer, it's not a check as a source document. It would be a memorandum. Okay, so the source document, memorandum 18. Now, there's also a debit card that you could use. And a debit card is a bank card that automatically deducts money from your account, and then allows you to pay for something directly. I will tell you, 1 second, before I jump into the transaction. A lot of people recommend using a debit card in lieu of a credit card just because you're not spending more money than you actually have available to you. So it's very similar to walking into a company and just paying cash because they're taking the cash right out of your account. So that's the difference between a debit card and a credit card. A debit card, the money's coming directly out of your account. A credit card, the money that you owe accrues throughout the month, and then you should pay that off in full every month. I will tell you personally that I use a credit card for everything. I never use my debit card because as soon as you use the debit card, you need to keep track of how much you are spending right away so that you don't overdraw your account. And so I know that I won't keep track of every time I use my debit card. And so I use my credit card, just being conscious of how much I'm spending and what I'm spending money on. And I can check in my app and see, where I'm at in the month, but then at the end of the month, I pay the whole bill off. That also allows me to build up my credit score while also accruing different credit card points. So it's something to keep in mind. If you don't have the discipline to pay off your credit card every month, then definitely use a debit card. But there are benefits to using credit cards instead of a debit card. Now, like I said, if you use a debit card, you have to record every time you use that debit card because it's coming right out of your account. So here you can see the company purchased supplies for $75 using a company debit card. That's fine if you do that, but you need to account for it every time you use it. So in your general journal, you'll put the date, and it's just like paying cash for supplies anytime you use your debit card. The only difference is the source document. So just like using an electronic funds transfer, when you're using your debit card, that's just like an electronic funds transfer, and a memorandum would be used as your source document instead of a check.